I got a new intro song. Do you like it? The funny thing is I just changed computers and this was the song that was in my saved songs. So, anyway, new intro. Welcome to the gray area. This is Codependency Kate. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that is super triggering for me. And so, I'm going to try to keep myself in check, or maybe not. I don't know. But what we're going to be talking about is the E of emotions, the E of my bend method, which is emotions. And this is so big for me because everyone I have ever met in real life and in my personal life and in general has been told lies about their emotions, like straight up lies. And even when I look online these days, and even therapists and even all these people are so well intentioned about regulating your emotions and all this shit about emotions. And without understanding them, without going into the context of them. And I know it's Instagram and like, what can you expect? But I hope to dispel any lies you've been told. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but this is my general sentiment. So I'm sure that if you listen to a lot of my stuff, you'll pick this up as I go. You've gotten this from my content probably, but people do not understand their emotions. And in my belief system, funny enough, emotions are at the core of everything. Let me say this to you. Okay, when you go to the doctor and they're like, you need to manage your stress, you're having XYZ problem, you need to manage your stress, manage your stress. Managing your stress is managing your emotions. That's what it is. It's managing them while understanding them and learning from them and listening to them and taking them seriously for your life. I mean, it goes to that basic of a thing. Like it's emotions permeate every single aspect of our bodies, of our relationships, of our lives, period. And on the other side of this, I know this to be true because for the past 4 years, working with people on a day to day basis individually that come and present with all sorts of problems, when we treat things from an emotional standpoint, like it's transformative. It's transformative. So I'm obviously very passionate about this. There's also a lot coming up for me with this about women in particular and how women are so emotional. It's just been used as such a slight. And even when I think about the people victims I've worked with of abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse, all types of physical abuse, all types of abuse, that all they have what they have in common, there's a lot they have in common, but what they have in common mostly is the demonization, villainization of someone's emotions. Religious trauma, trauma from the church, demonizing emotions, demonizing how you feel about something, getting you to change something about your emotional experience. Let's go to the estrangement conversation. We see this from estranged parents all the time online. Hey, I don't feel positively about you. I feel angry when I'm around you. I feel scared when I'm around you. And they're like, well, you got to deal with that. Or like, what are you going to do about it? Or, that makes you really weak. Like, this is a weak generation. All this shit. This is the one thing that people have in common from any type of abusive background is someone demonizing their emotional experience, telling them that they are wrong for their emotional experience. And then again, we have the other side, which is when people are validated and understood and nurtured and cared for emotionally. Number one, they feel they can be authentically themselves. Emotions are so tied to who we are as people, what we like, what we don't like, what matters to us, what we're passionate about, what upsets us. It affects every single thing. And so, someone made a comment on one of my videos when I was talking about emotions, and it was really even like a self-regulating video I did. And this comment has haunted me because they're like, so what are we supposed to do? Just like regulate our emotions for the rest of our lives? Like, it's just like waves crashing and we're just supposed to deal with it. And I was like, oh, We, as a mental health community and professionals, experts, all this stuff, we have not done a good job of explaining the value of emotions and how, when you take them seriously and understand them, they will lead you to your purpose, connection, love, authenticity. All these amazing, amazing things. Like they will ground you in your body. They will heal you from the inside out when you understand them. Like, I cannot say this enough, and I feel like I'm saying this, and even as I'm hearing myself say this, it sounds so radical. And I feel like people coming into this may just, it's an easy way to cut me off or like not take me seriously because I'm this passionate about it. Like when people talk about it, talk about something enough, you get like, you just compartmentalize it or you contain it. You're like, oh yeah, this is just Kate. She's obsessed with emotions, like whatever. Let's get to the real stuff. But and I get that. But guess what? That's an emotional reaction. That's an emotional reaction. Let's go back to how this plays out in real life. Did y'all see that thing that happened with Snoop Dogg? How he was at the movies with his kids or his grandkids or something, and I think it was a Disney movie or a Pixar movie or something, and there's LGBTQ representation in the film. And Snoop Dogg had this reaction where I think it was said, I read it the other day. It said, he was like, oh, his kids or grandkids were like, oh, who's that? What's that about? And he didn't have an answer. And so instead of, we're going to go to his experience in a second, but what he did with that was he was outspoken about it and saying that it shouldn't be represented in this film. And when we go frame by frame in this situation, so back to, he got a lot of like uh uproar and agreement. So agreement and disagreement. Like, yeah, we shouldn't have queer representation in kids' movies, and people being like, no, that's, homophobic. So, you're getting all sides of reactions here. But what I want to point out is his reaction. So what happens is he sees a queer couple on this film. His kids are like, oh, confused. That's their emotional experience, confused. And so they go and turn to their nearest adult to get clarity. So, kids' emotional reaction is they're confused, they're kids. So, they have a need of understanding, right? They have a need of getting more information. So, they turn to Snoop and they say, what's happening here? Snoop, because he's unaware of his internal experience, because he's unaware of how to manage his emotions and go inward and look at himself and say, what's happening inside of me? How can I do this right? He doesn't know how to manage everything going on inside. And so he externalizes, he turns it outward and says, this shouldn't be on film. And regardless of your opinion about that, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. So please you need to listen to what I'm saying. Okay. I'm not talking necessarily about that matter and your opinion on it. I'm talking about your experience and how you process these things. So what's happening in Snoop, which what we got from what he said, was the kids turn to him and they ask him about it, and he doesn't know what to say. So one, he's confused himself. Two, kids are looking at him to say something. He might be feeling pressure. He might be feeling frustrated. I don't know how many kids, how many questions they asked that day, but he's having an emotional experience. And you need to remember, emotions point to needs, period. Emotions point to your needs. And emotions do not happen outside of us. They do. I mean, that's a complicated thing, and I'll maybe cover that in this episode, but what's happening in him is that he's confused. And so he has an emotional reaction. And we see this reaction, this just like snap reaction in people that are not emotionally aware, in people that are so disconnected from their emotional experience, from their internal experience. And I don't want to demonize these people. Like, I'm even having trouble finding language to describe these people, because I work with estranged parents. There's a book children of emotionally immature parents. And I'm like, dang, that is like such an insult to these parents. These parents are not going to be open to hearing that. Like, hey, you're really immature. Oh, okay, yeah. Let me be, they're. So I'm even trying to figure out, I like the word disconnection. I mean, the word dysfunctional is accurate, but it's also that it doesn't come off well. So I'm still figuring out my language here too. But so somebody like Snoop, he's not aware of his internal experience. Oh, and by the way, this when I've in the estrangement conversation, estranged parents are certainly, most certainly unaware of their emotional experience, but a lot of times estranged adult children are too. They're not in a harmful way, like they don't necessarily externalize, so like point to something outside of themselves in their life when they are having general problems. A lot of times they internalize, so they kind of do the opposite, where it's all their fault. It's this like shame response, and so they just kind of hold it in. But the point being is that they're still not aware of their internal experience. It's like shooting an arrow outwards, but then to them they're pointing it inwards. Like you still aren't understanding the inner tapestry and like whole geography internally of yourself and who you are. And so that's like the number one thing that's missing from that as a result of narcissism, family dysfunction, etc., trauma, etc. And so from a clinical standpoint, even this is the way. But going back to Snoop, who's not aware of his internal experience, he's just pointing outward like this is the issue. It's them. It's the fact that they're represented on TV. That's the reason why I feel stupid. That you know what I'm saying? That's like his processing. And ironically, this is a cognitive distortion. This is an error in thinking. This is not an error in the emotions themselves. Do you understand that? I love explaining that to people because their minds are blown. But when people say, oh, people are too emotional or whatever, it's not the emotions themselves that are the issue. It's the cognitive distortions, it's the error in thinking. When we think about people that are really emotional or whatever, they tend to be black or white thinkers. Yes, that is an error in thinking. Thinking is so like it's so put on a pedestal as like the best thing you can do, like think through something. And while that's true in a way, there's just not the point is the dance. The point is feel the feelings and flow into the thoughts and let those thoughts flow back into the feeling. And it's this relationship. My attitude towards this is that thoughts and emotions are the same energy, just in different form. They're the same energy. Emotions are energy. Thoughts are energy. Emotions, honestly, like literally, are energy in motion. Emotion, energy in motion. Yes. Okay. So back to Snoop. He is feeling confused by these kids' questions, and he's obviously feeling stupid. And so again, he goes to say these people shouldn't be represented or whatever. Now, what's actually productive in a relationship with his kids, for example, what teaches them emotion regulation, self awareness, that it's about the relationship. He's like, I really don't know. I don't have the words for it. So he's having emotions. He's feeling stupid. He's obviously maybe feeling angry because he feels stupid. That's very common. When people feel dumb, they feel angry. There's like a very close association there. And shocker, that comes from when they were kids and they didn't know the answers to something and they got shamed. They had a natural reaction of anger, which is actually very healthy in that context. Very healthy when you don't know something and someone's shaming you about it, like, oh, well, you're just stupid then. It's a natural thing to get angry. So feeling stupid and being angry are very closely associated in a lot of people, much like they seem to be with Snoop. And so, well, how I want to teach people to process this through Bend is okay, here's my behavior. I'm externalizing, I'm lashing out. What? I'm having some needs here. Okay, I'm not a bad person, but I need to fix this because I'm losing relationships or this is not healthy for me or whatever. And then it's like, okay, well, I know these needs come from my emotions. What are my emotions? Well, I feel stupid and I feel confused. Okay, the need there is more information. That's it. The need there is to do your own research. So, like, the needs are concrete. They can be emotional too, yes, and they can be physical, but they're different from desires because desires are like more abstract and big picture. Like, I want a healthy relationship with my grandchildren. I want to, I want to be able to learn more. Like they're kind of more bigger picture things of like, I think desires are like your North Star, honestly. Like these are things I want in my life. This is who I want to be. These are the relationships that I want to have. Like they're kind of abstract, bigger picture things, whereas needs are more in the moment, so they can be physical or emotional. So, so anyway, in this situation, there's the need for more information. And so the question is like, okay, what is in my control? What is my personal responsibility here? That's accountability. Yeah. Is meeting your own needs. That's accountability and understanding other people have needs and holding both at the same time. Okay, so these kids are confused. They need more information. I'm confused and I'm angry and I need more information. Maybe I'm angry. Am I angry because I'm 65 years old and I don't understand this? Maybe, like, am I angry because, what is that? And it's not, I want to say that a lot of times people are scared to go emotions focused because they've been blamed so much, like they've been scapegoated so much, they've been emotionally abused so much, where when they have something valid to say, like when they're angry and it's valid, someone's like, "Oh, you're really angry, you should probably take care of that." And so it's that's like the biggest form of violence that I think exists that messes people up is emotion. That's emotional abuse. When someone's having an emotional reaction, you're saying, "Hey, wait a minute. This is actually about you." And what I'm trying to do here is say that there's both. Like there's both an inner experience and an external experience, and both need to be looked at and informed. Like it's a relationship. How am I understanding my external experience? And is there something that needs to change in the external experience? But like let me understand both. It's a relationship, And so that's what I want to do because again, I think people are so resistant to the emotions conversation because they've been so abused and scapegoated. And when they've taken accountability, that's been being scapegoated. And that's the biggest damage I see in the estrangement conversation is like these adult children that actually do take responsibility. They in fact take too much responsibility. And that's when I talk about internalizing. They're drawn to all this personal growth stuff, all of this self-help stuff. They've read every single book on every single thing because they internalize. They take too much responsibility. That's when I've talked to you about that going to therapy so much is like not necessarily a healthy thing because it's reinforcing that you're the problem. So the Snoop thing is just basically, and I think Snoop actually did come around and was like, okay, you guys got to educate me. Like, I got to know. And, that's still, it's funny he said it that way. I think he did say it that way because I remember being like, you're still putting this on everybody else. You're still putting this on everybody else. Like, you've got responsibility here. You can do something with this and where it's not on everybody. And, so yeah, I think that's just a funny example of how emotional unawareness, whatever, just contributes to this incendiary, reactive nature of things in the world. And y'all will just, when you start to really listen to your emotions and understand it, I'm going to do my best to explain that process. But, so my reaction to that in the moment, I had an internal experience, right? Of like the fuck that was my experience. It was like, damn it, Snoop, not you. I was disappointed. You think about people in these positions and you think that they have just a superior way of processing life and handling life, and then you realize they're just emotionally stunted as fuck. They literally have no idea what's going on inside of them, and that's ironic because they're very creative. So um, that's what the biggest thing in my opinion that the world is missing is like some level of an internal experience. And I want to encourage people, especially estranged parents that listen to my stuff. I feel like I have a lot. They're not very outspoken. I get messages sometimes, but they're the estranged parents that feel so much guilt and shame for what they've done. Like I've had messages from people that spanked their kids, and they're like, I have learned now, now I've learned that that was not the right thing to do and that was harmful and, blah, blah, blah. And what they do in these circumstances is they can't name their guilt and shame about it and sit with it. And really, this is our fault as mental health professionals. Like, I think that we are not trained to deal with emotions in a productive way. A lot of times there's so much bypassing that happens in therapy, and so we don't know how to do that with clients. But so like these parents, they don't know how to name it and name the shame, name this guilt. And so it's not contained. And so because it's not contained, they're running rampant, reading every book possible, watching every video possible. They're doing all of this consuming, but they're not digesting. Like that's the difference here. And I think with a lot of estranged adult children is like there's so much consumption of this is what's wrong and this is why. And it's all this intellectualization of problems. And part of that, I don't want to demonize that either because I think information makes people feel safe. We're going back to Ben, this behavior of searching for information, knowledge seeking, the behavior is meeting a need. It's meeting a need. I feel safe when I can read about someone else's experience, when this is valid. Okay. That gave me kind of a dopamine hit in the moment, and I feel safer now because it's real to me in this moment and I'm reminded of that. And so but the problem is that you don't know the emotions there. You don't know what was happening around you when you started to feel unsafe. Maybe it was things started to feel good in your life. Like maybe you had a great interaction with a friend or your partner, or you got a job promotion or something positive, and it kind of triggered like, oh, this goodness like isn't feel safe. Vulnerability doesn't feel safe. Joy doesn't feel safe. That's like the number one like saddest thing ever from people that are raised in emotionally neglectful, abusive relationships is actual goodness does not feel safe. It feels unfamiliar. And our brains are wired to protect us, right? Like we know our brains are not wired to necessarily give us real safety. They're just there to protect us. And it's like I don't know, this image just came in my head of like wearing all this armor all the time. That's what your brain is kind of wired to do if you grew up in these emotionally neglectful relationships. You were wired to protect yourself all the time. So when you take off the armor, you feel naked. You feel exposed. You feel scared. Because there's not the certainty of harm. There's not the certainty of that need to protect yourself. And so you're like, okay, can I take this off? Like, is this real? And so we do something called reality checking, where our need is like to confirm our reality, like, no, it is this bad. So I think people get that a lot from my videos. I hear this all the time of like, oh, I'm so validated. But if they only intellectualize things, they look forward to my videos the next day so much. They have their notifications on. And not to say that that's bad, right? Like a lot of people come to my page and stuff from all different areas of healing, and they come to healing TikTok or healing Instagram or healing information from this lack of safety in their bodies, but they're not going to get it. You're not going to get it unless you start doing emotional kind of somatic work. And so, what does that look like? I mean, and this is the hard part for me. I hate to be somebody that's like contributing to the problem and not so much to solutions. That's why Bend exists, because people, that's a real useful, practical tool is like, okay, what am I feeling? Where is it in my body? How can I give myself some relief right now? How can I ground? How can I, be like I'm safe? That's what, when people say, name 5 things that you see, name 4 things that you hear, name 3 things, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 tool of grounding. That's the point. The point is to get back into your body and to bring a level of safety here. So the idea is like, where you're sitting right now, building safety in yourself and just taking a breath and being like, okay, I'm here. Like I'm not in my past when I was so helpless and I couldn't do anything. Like I'm here and I can be safe at least with myself. When I talk about bend and emotions, and this is interesting too, if people really struggle to feel their emotions, it's because in their mind they don't have the self-compassionate mechanisms to like allow them, you know? Like, you know, when people they leave a toxic relationship and then their next relationship is toxic and they're like, I don't know why I can't open up to this person. I don't know why I can't feel sexually aroused to this person. Like, that's your body saying, I'm not safe yet. And in your mind, the answer is like, okay, can I feel sexually aroused by myself? That's the question. Is like, is it only with this person or is it also with myself? And that is the healing kind of journey is it starts with you. Like a therapist can give you a corrective emotional experience. I hope to do that too, is to be like, hey, you know, what you're feeling is valid and real. And so a lot of times it does take someone else. Like it takes like a qualified, safe person to help you have a corrective emotional experience. Like this stuff isn't all in your head. Back to bend, a lot of times with this, if self-compassion overwhelms you, the need is some help. The need maybe is some medicine. The need maybe is a different therapist. The need is opening up to friends. Like so these needs are based in our 3D reality, which is you need food and water. Like you need people. It's not just all in your head. That can be part of this internalizing experience that's like re-traumatizing. It's like that's not safe in a way of like, I do need help. But I will say that if you don't want it, that's okay. And did you hear me? I said, that's okay. That's okay. Where you are right now is okay. You can be so mad. You cannot want to do this. That is okay. That's okay. You know why it's okay? Because you're going to keep learning. And, sometimes we need a break from all this healing stuff. Sometimes it's so overwhelming. Like, again, we're consuming so much and we're not digesting. What is it? Fight or flight is our sympathetic nervous system, and rest and digest is the parasympathetic nervous system. So yeah, this analogy stands. That you have like resting is not, when I ask people like, what do you do to rest? Like, what do you do when you're not thinking about, say, this estrangement issue? What do you do when you're not thinking about work? And the answer is always like they're doing something else. They're going out with friends. They're getting their nails done. Like they're not journaling. They're not walking and reflecting. They're not laying there meditating. And I'm not a big fan of meditating for people that struggle emotionally. Like, I think that can feel too chaotic for some people. Some people, it's amazing, amazing. A lot of people, it's not. So yeah. And that's why I go back to making a hate list because that is the best place to start. That is the best place to start. If you don't know what's going on emotionally, I bet you, and I get messages like this all the time and I love them when people are like, I made a hate list today and wow, it was like a lot longer, but it really worked. It really worked. It helped me understand what's really bothering me. Because here's the deal, you guys, like you gotta, if you want to reparent, like this is reparenting yourself. If you grew up emotionally neglected or abused at the very least, this is the deal. Bend is the deal. And if you don't know where to start, like just be starting to become aware of your behaviors that you are not, that take too much time. Maybe you overeat, maybe you abuse substances. All of this is okay. That's the ideal with Bend. It's all okay. It's all, maybe, yes, you want to change it. That's the D, right? The desire. Like, I want to live free from substances. I want to have relationships. You can also say things you don't want. Like, I don't want alcohol to consume my social interactions. I don't want to be thinking about food every fucking second of every day. Like you don't, it's so we're noticing the behaviors and then we're naming the desires like what you want instead. I want to feel, like say you hate your job. This was me. So this is kind of when I started conceptualizing Bend. I remember I was working the sales job, and this was before I was in school, but I was working the sales job and I had to make like 65 fucking calls a day. And I remember reading a lot about emotions at the time and being like, I really want a job and a life where I can process my emotions in real time as they come. Making 65 calls, you're calling real people on the phone, and they could be rude, they could be nice, they could be whatever. It's just like so frantic and chaotic that how can you really process what you're feeling? And I remember just like in my heart, it was so like almost a spiritual thing. Like it wasn't a prayer, but it was just like I was so connected to myself. Like I really want a life and a job where I can process my emotions in real time. And that was like, I get to do that now. I get to do that now. And I think that just really, I'll never forget that. Just like centering in myself and just saying what I wanted in this bigger way. And then kind of my needs and getting there kind of opened up for me, So it's noticing these behaviors like, oh, I hate this job. So this is where the hate list comes in. Like, what do you hate? What do you hate? You hate what about your relationship? You hate where you live. You hate your job. What do you hate about your job? What do you hate about the people at your job? And this makes me so sad to say and think about, but people don't know how to do this because no one's ever listened to them before. No one's ever listened to them before and really like push, wait a minute, what does that mean to you? Wait a minute, how did that affect you? And people, I've worked, people can be really disoriented. They don't know. They don't know because their life has been so much on autopilot and they've never been modeled and taught how to sit, like how to process what's going on the inside. Because that's what matters. That's how you actually connect with people. I wouldn't say like bread and butter, but my like first experience doing therapy 4 years ago, a lot of it was couples therapy. And I'm trained as a marriage and family therapist. So yes, I see majority individuals, but um, you know, I do a lot of couple stuff. And uh oh, yeah. So the deal, I mean, spoiler alert to couples therapy and family therapy is not only what, you're saying, "Hey, I don't like that they do this, this, and this." And I'm like, "Okay, how does that affect you? Like, how do you feel about that?" I'm like, "Well, I don't like it because of this and this." I'm like, "Yeah, but how do you feel about it?" And it takes me going back to say like, "No, what's going on inside of you?" And they're like, it makes me feel so badly about myself. I don't feel special. I don't feel, all this stuff. And so this is the heart of it. This is the heart of everything is this language. And that is the language of change. And that's what Bend is. Bend is the language of change, the language of connection, the language of vulnerability. LOV. I was like, when I first came up with Bend, I was like, oh my gosh, it's love. LOV, language of vulnerability. This behavior is only part of it. This behavior, it's about that my needs are not met. It's about how I feel, and it's about what I want so badly instead. Like I want so badly, we're in this abusive dynamic, right? Like this is an example. We're in this emotionally abusive dynamic. You're emotionally abusive to me, and I want so badly to connect with you. And I used to feel, that this meant something about me. It used to make me feel so angry and hurt. And I need, especially because I was at a time in my life where I just really needed support. And I really need that now. But now that I've validated myself enough and I'm secure and self-compassionate, I know it's not about me and that this is you. And I need boundaries around here. And I need, I'm going to need to separate. I'm going to need to live separately if this doesn't change. And I want it to so badly because I love you. How different does that feel than like, this is your problem? Because when we're staying on that level, on this behavioral, intellectual level, we're not getting to the heart of things. And heart, the heart is where things change. And I'm not saying that it's your responsibility for the relationship to change, because your responsibility is for yourself and to protect yourself. But, I do think this is the missing piece in relationship language and conversation, and I'm personally like hesitant about it because I people need protection more than they need connection. They can't get connected unless they're personally protected. They cannot, these conversations don't are not going to make a difference if one, you don't have your own career, you don't have your own backup, you don't have your own actual self-protection. Like they're not going to work because you're again, this is an internalizing, it's like an internalized codependency where, oh, if I just say this the right way, then they'll get it. And that's not the only factor. That's just not the only thing. This is why I think us couples therapists, like we can do damage when we talk about what heals in a couples therapy room because there are so many other factors that we talk about. Like, hey, where are you guys living? How is it safe? What's the safety like at home? What's the finances like? Like, it's our job to assess for safety first. It's not, this emotional stuff doesn't matter unless there's protection there. And so I want you to understand that needs, when we're talking about bend and needs, we're talking about real needs. Yes, we're talking about emotional needs, but we're talking about real ones. We're talking about the need for space, the need for help, the need for money, the need for like peace in the home. Like these are like real needs that we have, and you're allowed to meet those needs regardless of if your partner agrees or not. The idea is that emotional ones can be separate than physical ones. Like I can be safe in myself, I can belong with myself, I can accept myself separate from my physical circumstances. Like at the end of the day, you're all you've got. And I wish people created content or were more on this. I consume a lot, or not a lot. I used to do a lot more, but not anymore. But like, I see videos sometimes where people talk about their success in content creation, and they're like, at the end of the day, you are all you have. You are all you've got, ultimately. And I think that from an emotional standpoint, and that's the sad thing is, for hyper independent people, like, who grew up emotionally neglected. And so they're like the most badass people ever. Um, and that's a sad truth that you are all you've got. What did I see yesterday? It was like the wrong people will come into your life to show you that you can do it by yourself. But and then the right people will come into your life to show you that you don't have to. Let me say that again to make sure I got it right, but also for you to hear it. The wrong people will come into your life to show you that you can do it all by yourself, but the right people will come into your life and show you that you don't have to. And that's the truth. And that's the trauma, is doing it all by yourself. That's the trauma. And and remember that when the right people come along, it's doing both. It's not going from like hyper independence to codependence where it's like, oh, well, I don't have to do anything for myself anymore. I can just rely on this person to meet all my needs. And it's like, no, it's both. You can't give from an empty cup even in healthy relationships. It's not hyper independence to codependence. It's maybe hyper independence or codependence to interdependence, secure attachment. That's what it is. So, going back to emotions, the biggest thing is like in relationships, the relationship will not change unless you go inward, unless you go inward, meet your own needs, sit with them. And then, the other thing that can be added to Ben, I don't know how to do this yet, but like I need this. This is how, because this is how I'm feeling. Are you willing to? I think this is part of nonviolent communication. There's a book on this. But you make kind of a formal request. It's like when someone's being defensive. I got this message yesterday that had listened to my defensive episode. When you're dealing with someone that's chronically defensive and you're like, okay, my boundary is like, we're not going to talk about emotional stuff unless you're curious and compassionate, or like, I'm not going to talk to you unless you give a shit about what I'm experiencing. And they asked, what's the boundary there? Like, how do you go from that to, so you set the boundary, and then what do you do after that? Like, when does it become stonewalling? And first of all, it's not stone. Like, if you have a boundary and they're not the ones coming back to you saying, like, oh, I get this now, my bad, that's not stonewalling. Just because a behavior might look similar on the surface doesn't mean that that's what it is. The context matters, right? Like, so, but let's talk through a real situation like that, doing bend and meeting your own needs. So it's, the person's being defensive. You're being like, okay, I'm feeling anger. Like I'm noticing I'm feeling anger in my body. This means to me, this is an indicator that my boundaries are being crossed again. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. Okay, what do I need? I need space. I'm not doing this. And I want a relationship, and I need protection. I need self-protection because I know for myself I'm going to get to a level 10 and I don't want to do that. My kids are home. Like I cannot do that. And so what do I need here? I'm also feeling helpless. I'm feeling what's exacerbating my emotions right now is that I'm feeling stuck and trapped because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I don't have support, or I don't know of support in my head right now. Okay. All right. I mean, this is quick processing quickly, right? But like, this is what it's like. This is sitting with yourself. It's like, okay, I'm feeling this and I need this. I need my therapist. Like, I need my friends. I need to talk through my options. Okay, I'm actually getting to a point where I need real support. I need, for my own emotional well being, I need to figure out a way out of this, or like a way to get my needs met and work on the relationship. Can those be separate? Can I be protecting myself and working on this relationship and expressing my desires and expressing myself more authentically? Sure. Yeah, that can all exist. And so you're setting the boundary. I'm not doing this drama until you give a shit about my experience. We're not going to talk about emotional stuff. And then, for depending on up to you, what the status is of your relationship, what the quality is like, is go back later and saying like, babe, like what's going on? This is not healthy behavior. What is this really about? And so instead of it being an in the moment thing, being a more like creating opportunities to go a little deeper, saying like, babe, what these things that you're doing have language, and it's called defensiveness. It's called stonewalling. When I set a boundary and around our intimacy, like around the tone of our conversations, and you don't respond to me, that's abandoning our relationship. What's happening here? Are you overwhelmed? Like, really help me understand. And if you sit there and understand and you get to this like heart place, I mean, you're married. If you're married, this happens a lot over time. But I'm gonna go back to real quick when people are like, yeah, I've tried telling him, I've tried talking to him. And, when we get to the real of it, they've never really had real conversations, like the non-reactive conversations at night when they're laying in bed talking. Or if they have, there's not been action to follow it up. People like are like, oh, okay, we've connected heart to heart. Now I don't have to have these boundaries anymore. And that's not the case. It's like, okay, babe, we can't. I tell people to treat these emotional issues as addictions. Like, because there's a lot out there about how you handle an addiction. You go to Al-Anon, I can't control it, but I can certainly set boundaries. There's that boundaries in marriage book I've recommended before. It's Christian, so beware if you have religious trauma and all that. But there is a way to both protect yourself and hold someone accountable. And again, if you're sitting here frustrated because I'm saying that, maybe you're not in the like maybe there's something else happening. I don't know, right? Because I'm not your therapist. I don't know your situation. That might not be the case. And I will say also, it's incredibly excruciating to hold two truths at the same time. Like a lot of the times that's the core issue is like, how do I protect myself and hold someone accountable? How do I keep expressing myself authentically? How do I keep learning and growing for myself and be honest with this person and act in integrity with this person and say, hey, I'm seeing this in you. Um, and so, and it's a painful thing. But the bottom line is to never abandon how you feel about it. Like never, or and if you do notice, like notice, okay, we just had this fight, then we had this heart to heart and everything feels okay. And then you see stuff online, and then it pops up and then you're reminded like, oh yeah, I'm not really listening to myself. I'm not really standing on business with this stuff because my emotions are real and I'm not crazy. They're not coming from trauma. Like that's another misconception. I mean, I feel like I could talk about this forever and I don't have a lot more time today like I normally do, but that's the deal is not invalidating yourself. When you're experiencing something emotional and you know this because you're having these kind of behaviors, these reactive automatic behaviors. That's an emotional thing's happening when it's automatic. It's what's happening. And the process is to say, okay, I'm noticing my throat is tight my throat is tight. My stomach is tight too. Okay. Okay. Let me be with that for a second and breathe. What's that about? What's going on? Okay, yeah. Well, I just got off the phone with my mom and that's always stressful. Okay, yeah. Tell me more. All right, yeah. And she said this one thing that just really pissed. She invited herself here. And that really feels like a violation. And I didn't say no. I didn't say no because I didn't know what to say. Oh, you didn't know what to say? That's tough. Yeah. Is that because you want, is that, what's that about? And it's like you're just listening to yourself. You're being curious with yourself. Okay. Okay. What do I need here? I need maybe to send her a text and be like, hey, mom, we need to have another conversation about that. I want to see her. I want to keep talking with her. I don't know if I don't want her at my place. So you're just thinking about, you're reconciling your needs and your desires all the time, and your emotions are informing that. How does this feel to me? Do I feel relief? Do I feel lighter? Do I feel like I'm not going to be thinking about this all day? Okay, good. That's good. That's alignment. That's alignment is an action that makes you feel like you've got your own back, you know? And you can say to your emotions, like, thank you. You've always been there trying to protect me. I've never known how to deal with you, but thank you. Like, it's this cheesy and corny. It is. But this is how you talk to children, and you have an inner child. You do. We all do. And self-compassion and bend and emotions are real, and they're there for a reason. They're your body's physical response to your environment. They travel along your nervous system, your nerves, and they express through the fascia, which is like a tissue that holds your whole body together. I mean, I'm not like very astute on all the biology of emotions. I'm not there yet, but what I do know is that they're physical and that they are real. It's electricity, literally. That's what it is. And it's electricity through your nervous system, and it's expressed through the fascia. Someone actually explained it to me. Emotions are like the power grid in your neighborhood, and the fascia is like the houses, it's how it's expressed, like the TV's on, the lights are on. So there's a physical component, but they're real, they're real, they're real. And if you sit with them, and you might need help listening to what they have to say, and that's okay. That's the need. But thinking about what you want, like I want peace, I want to be okay in my body. And what do I need to get there? Because these emotions are real. And I would be so curious how these ideas kind of like how they land on you. I normally get a lot of resistance to them because this is so fucking ingrained in people from a young age. And that's why people are so susceptible to abuse on every level. So, thanks everybody for listening. It's good to be back. I'm recording this on Monday. And, so it's coming out Tuesday. That's how we do it these days. I kept a promise to myself. I want to do it every week till the end of the year at least. I took 2 weeks off to move, but that was okay. It's okay. It's okay. I didn't break any type of promise to myself. I'm adapting. Yeah. All right, guys. Any thoughts, questions, message me at Codependency Kate. And I will see you